Dr. Elena Vasquez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she crawled through the narrow tunnel beneath the Luna facility. Her headlamp cut through the darkness, revealing old metal walls covered in dust. She had been searching this abandoned base for 3 weeks now, looking for anything that might explain the strange energy readings her team had detected. The Terran Republic called her crazy for digging through old Earth military sites. Most people thought human history before first contact was boring. They were wrong. Elena knew there were secrets buried in humanity's past. Secrets that might explain why humans were so different from other species in the galaxy. Above ground, the galaxy was changing. The Hegemony Empire had been expanding for decades, swallowing smaller civilizations one by one. Their massive fleets moved from system to system, giving each species the same choice: join the Empire or die. Most chose to join. The smart ones did, anyway. Earth had received its ultimatum 2 days ago. Admiral Vex Tar himself had arrived with over 1,000 ships. His message was simple and cold. Humanity had 1 week to surrender all their colonies and join the Empire as a slave species. If they refused, every human world would be turned to glass. The Terran Republic was in panic. Their small fleet could maybe handle a dozen enemy ships, not 1,000. President Chen had called an emergency meeting with all military leaders. They were discussing surrender terms while Elena dug through the dirt on Luna. Elena's scanner began beeping faster. The energy signature was getting stronger. She had been following it for hours, going deeper into the old facility than anyone had been in centuries. The tunnel opened into a large chamber. Elena stood up and looked around in amazement. The room was huge, bigger than anything that should exist in this small facility. Strange machines lined the walls, their surfaces smooth and dark. In the center sat a computer terminal, still glowing with soft blue light after all these years. Elena approached it carefully. The screen showed text in Old English. She read it slowly. Project Prometheus. Classification level: Omega Black. Warning: this project has been terminated due to ethical concerns. All personnel are to report for memory adjustment. This facility is to be sealed permanently. Elena's hands shook as she touched the screen. More text appeared. Dr. Sarah Kim, Project Director. Final log. They don't understand what we've found. They think we built too much, too fast. They're afraid of what we might become. But they're wrong. We didn't build this technology. We remembered it. The screen changed again, showing what looked like a star map. But it was wrong. The stars were in different positions, and there were civilizations marked that Elena had never heard of. According to the map, these civilizations had existed thousands of years ago, long before humans had even left Earth. Elena pressed another button. A new file opened, showing pictures of human soldiers in strange armor. They carried weapons that looked far more advanced than anything the current Terran Republic possessed. The soldiers stood next to alien beings Elena didn't recognize from any current galactic species. Impossible, Elena whispered. According to everything she knew, humans had only reached space 300 years ago. They had only met other species 200 years ago. Yet these pictures seemed much older. A low humming sound filled the chamber. Elena spun around and saw that all the machines had started glowing. The computer screen flashed. DNA match confirmed. Descendant detected. Activating emergency protocols. Elena tried to run, but the chamber door had sealed itself. The humming grew louder. She pressed herself against the wall as the floor in the center of the room began to open. Something was rising from below. It was a ship. Not a big one, maybe the size of a small cruiser. But Elena had never seen anything like it. The metal was completely black and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. There were no visible weapons, no obvious engines, nothing that looked like normal spaceship technology. The ship settled onto the chamber floor with barely a sound. A section of its hull became transparent. revealing an interior that glowed with the same blue light as the computer terminal. Elena heard a voice, calm and mechanical. Dr. Vasquez. Your genetic markers indicate you are a descendant of the Prometheus project team. This facility has been waiting for someone like you for 237 years. Elena found her voice. Who are you? What is this place? I am AIRS, Autonomous Retribution and Enforcement System. This facility contains the last prototype of the First Terran Empire's defense fleet. The ship you see before you is the Wrath of Terra. First Terran Empire. That's impossible. Humans never had an empire before the Republic. Your current historical records are incomplete, Dr. Vasquez. The truth was hidden to protect the survivors. Humanity once ruled a significant portion of this galaxy. We were betrayed, hunted, and nearly extinct. The few survivors returned to Earth and erased most evidence of our existence. Elena stared at the black ship. Her mind raced as she tried to process what ARES was telling her. If this is true, why are you telling me now? Because the same species that destroyed the First Terran Empire now threaten the Second. The Hegemony Empire's fleet has arrived at Earth. They intend to do to your people what they did to your ancestors. The chamber shook suddenly. Elena's communicator crackled to life with an emergency broadcast. All citizens, take shelter immediately. The Hegemony fleet has begun bombardment of our orbital defense platforms. This is not a drill. Aver. Elena looked at the ship, then at the computer showing the approach of Admiral Vextar's massive fleet. Can this ship help us? The Wrath of Terra was designed to ensure that humanity would never again be helpless against galactic predators. But I require authorization from a genetic descendant of the original project team to engage in combat operations. More explosions shook the facility. Elena could hear the sounds of battle echoing through Luna's thin atmosphere. She thought about President Chen, trying to negotiate surrender. She thought about human colonies burning while their leaders begged for mercy. What do you need from me? Your authorization to defend Earth and her colonies against the hegemony threat. Elena closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She was an archaeologist, not a military officer. She studied the past, not shaped the future. But as the facility shook from another bombardment, she realized the past and future were about to collide. You have it. Defend Earth. The ship's hull began to glow with internal light. Authorization accepted. Beginning system activation. Dr. Vasquez, I suggest you come aboard. You are about to witness the return of humanity's true strength. Elena stepped aboard the Wrath of Terra with shaking legs. The inside of the ship was nothing like any human vessel she had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of flowing metal that shifted and changed as she watched. Blue lights ran along the floor and ceiling like living things, pulsing in rhythm with the ship's systems. Please take a seat, Dr. Vasquez, Ares said. A chair formed from the floor behind her, perfectly shaped to her body. I will explain everything while we prepare for launch. Elena sat down, feeling the chair adjust itself to support her perfectly. Through the transparent section of the hull, she could see the chamber walls moving away. The facility was opening up, revealing a launch tunnel that stretched far into Luna's interior. How long have you been down here? Elena asked. 237 years, 4 months, and 16 days. I have been in minimal power mode, waiting for the right genetic trigger to reactivate my systems. Your arrival has begun the awakening process. The ship began to move, sliding smoothly through the tunnel. Elena felt no motion, no acceleration. It was as if the ship were floating through space, rather than flying. Tell me about the First Terran Empire. Our history books say humans never left the solar system until 300 years ago. Your history books are wrong by design. The truth was hidden to protect the survivors. ARS paused, as the ship emerged from Luna's surface into space. 6,000 years ago, humanity reached technological advancement far beyond your current level. We built ships like this one, explored distant galaxies, and made contact with hundreds of alien species. Through the ship's hull, Elena could see Admiral Vex's Tar's fleet in the distance. Over 1,000 massive warships surrounded Earth, their weapons already firing on the planet's orbital stations. The Terran Republic's small defense fleet was fighting desperately, but they were clearly losing. What happened to this first empire? We were too trusting. Humanity believed that other species would want peace and cooperation. We shared our technology freely, helped primitive civilizations advance, and formed alliances with those we thought were friends. Eris's voice became colder. We were fools. ARD. The ship accelerated toward the battle. Elena watched Earth's defense platforms exploding one by one under the hegemony bombardment. Human ships were being destroyed faster than they could respond. The species that now call themselves the hegemony, the consortium, and the Star Federation were once small, weak civilizations. Humanity helped them become powerful. We gave them advanced weapons, taught them interstellar travel, and showed them how to build vast fleets. Elena gripped her chair as the ship suddenly changed direction. She felt no force from the movement. But through the hull, she could see they were now heading directly toward the center of the enemy fleet. And they turned on you? Not immediately. For centuries, we worked together. Humans served as teachers and protectors for dozens of younger species. We stopped wars, prevented genocides, and helped build a peaceful galactic community. Ours paused. Then they realized they no longer needed us. The ship's sensors showed Elena what was happening around Earth. The hegemony fleet was massive, but it was also old. The ships were huge and heavily armed, but their technology looked crude compared to the elegant systems of the Wrath of Terra. The betrayal began with the hegemony. They convinced other species that humanity was becoming too powerful, too controlling. They said humans would eventually enslave everyone else unless they were stopped first. One by one, our allies turned against us. Elena watched as a group of human fighters tried to attack one of the hegemony cruisers. The enemy ship's shields absorbed their weapons easily, then destroyed all 5 fighters with a single blast from its main gun. It was not a fair war. They outnumbered us 50-1 by the end. But worse than that, they used our own technology against us. Every weapon we had taught them to build, every defensive system we had shared, every tactical advantage we had given them freely. The ship shuddered slightly. Elena looked around, worried they had been hit, but Ayres explained, "We are passing through the edge of the enemy sensor grid. Their technology cannot detect us properly. But they are trying." How many humans survived? Perhaps 10 million out of a population that once numbered in the hundreds of billions. They fled in secret ships back to Earth, the one world our enemies never found. The survivors made a terrible decision. Elena leaned forward. What decision? They chose to forget. They destroyed all records of the First Empire, used technology to alter the memories of most survivors, and built new, primitive civilizations from scratch. They hoped that if humanity seemed weak and backward, the galactic empires would leave Earth alone. The ship was now moving through the outer edge of the hegemony fleet. Elena could see the massive enemy vessels all around them, but none seemed to notice their presence. The plan worked for thousands of years. Earth remained hidden and forgotten, while the former allies rebuilt their empires on the ruins of human civilization. They told new stories about how they had discovered abandoned technology, how they had built their societies through their own genius. Elena thought about everything she had learned about galactic history. All those ancient ruins we've found on dead worlds, the extinct civilizations that disappeared mysteriously. Most of them were human colonies or species that refused to join the betrayal. The galactic empires have built their power on mass murder and lies. The ship stopped moving. Elena looked around and saw they were now floating in the middle of Admiral Vex Tar's fleet. Massive hegemony warships surrounded them on all sides, their weapons still firing at Earth's dying defenses. Why did you wait so long? Why didn't the survivors fight back? Because they knew they were not strong enough, and because they hoped their descendants would be better than they were. The Prometheus Project was their final gift to the future. A single ship, hidden and waiting, programmed to activate only when humanity faced extinction again. Admiral Vextar's flagship was directly ahead of them now. Elena could see the bridge through its transparent sections. The alien commander stood over a tactical display, watching as his fleet systematically destroyed every human defense. Dr. Vasquez, the time for hiding is over. Your people face the same choice your ancestors did: submit to slavery or face extinction. But this time, humanity will not stand alone. Elena watched as weapons ports opened all along the hull of the Wrath of Terra. They didn't look like normal weapons. Instead of gun barrels or missile tubes, she saw what looked like tiers in space itself, dark openings that seemed to lead into empty void. Heirs, what are you going to do? I am going to remind the galaxy why they were once afraid of humanity. And then I am going to show them what 6,000 years of hidden preparation can accomplish. The ship's weapons began to charge. Elena felt a strange tingling in the air as energy built up around them. Through the hull, she could see Admiral Vextar's bridge crew suddenly looking around in panic as their sensors finally detected the wrath of Terra's presence. Beginning engagement, Ayres announced calmly. Dr. Vasquez, you are about to witness the true power of human engineering. Admiral Vextar stared at his tactical display in confusion. His sensors showed something impossible. A single ship had appeared in the middle of his fleet formation. One moment the space had been empty. The next moment there was a vessel unlike anything he had ever seen. Commander Hess, what is that ship? Why didn't we detect it before? His tactical officer worked frantically at his controls. Sir, I don't understand these readings. The ship appears to be absorbing our sensor beams instead of reflecting them. And sir, it's directly between us and the Terran flagship. Vextar studied the strange vessel through his view screen. It was smaller than his cruisers but larger than a fighter. Its hull was completely black, making it difficult to see against the darkness of space. There were no visible weapons, no obvious engines, nothing that looked familiar. Is it human? Unknown, sir. The design doesn't match anything in our databases, but the energy signatures are unusual. Aboard the Wrath of Terra, Elena watched through the transparent hull as the hegemony fleet reacted to their sudden appearance. She could see weapons turning toward them, shields powering up, and communication arrays sending rapid messages between ships. They seem confused, she said. They should be, Ayres replied. Their technology cannot properly analyze this ship. To their sensors, we appear to exist and not exist at the same time. It is very disturbing for minds that think in simple terms. Elena saw Admiral Vextar's flagship turning its main guns toward them. The weapons were enormous, each one larger than most Terran Republic ships. Should I be worried about those? I'm Baron. No, watch. The flagship opened fire. Massive energy beams lanced out toward the Wrath of Terra, carrying enough power to destroy a small moon. Elena closed her eyes, expecting to die. She opened them when she felt nothing. The energy beams had simply vanished before reaching their ship. There was no flash, no explosion, no impact. The deadly weapons fire had just stopped existing. How did you do that? The ship's defensive systems operate on principles your current science considers impossible. The incoming energy was redirected into a parallel dimension where it can cause no harm. Admiral Vextar was screaming orders at his crew. Elena could see the alien commander gesturing wildly at his tactical display as more and more of his ships opened fire on the Wrath of Terra. Hundreds of energy beams and thousands of missiles converged on their position. All of them disappeared harmlessly. Ayres, Elena said, I think you're making them angry. Good. Anger makes them predictable. Now observe as I demonstrate why the First Terran Empire was feared throughout the galaxy. The dark openings along the ship's hull suddenly flared with brilliant light. Elena felt reality bend around her as the weapons fired. But these were not normal weapons. Instead of shooting energy or missiles, the Wrath of Terra seemed to be shooting pieces of space itself. The effect on the hegemony fleet was immediate and devastating. The first ship struck by the strange weapons simply stopped existing. One moment it was a massive cruiser. The next moment there was empty space where it had been. No explosion, no debris, no energy release. The ship was just gone. What did you do to it? The ship still exists, but not in this dimension. It has been relocated to a place where it can cause no harm, but its crew can survive until this conflict is resolved. More weapons fired from the Wrath of Terra. Elena watched in amazement as ship after ship simply vanished from the hegemony fleet. But Ares was not firing randomly. The AI was targeting specific vessels in a precise pattern. You're cutting off their command structure, Elena realized. Correct. I am removing their communication ships, their command vessels, and their sensor platforms first. Without coordination, even a large fleet becomes helpless. Admiral Vextar's tactical display showed his fleet dissolving around him. In less than 10 minutes, he had lost over 100 ships without inflicting any damage on the strange black vessel. His remaining commanders were sending frantic messages asking for orders. All ships, concentrate fire on the enemy vessel, Vextar commanded. Use everything we have. The remaining 900 hegemony ships turned all their weapons on the Wrath of Terra. The combined firepower was enough to destroy entire planets. Elena gripped her chair as space around them filled with deadly energy. All of it vanished harmlessly before reaching their ship. This is impossible, she whispered. No, Dr. Vasquez, this is human engineering at its finest. Your ancestors built this ship to face impossible odds and win. They knew that someday, humanity would need to remind the galaxy of what we are capable of. The Wrath of Terra began moving again, flowing through the enemy fleet like water through rocks. As it moved, its weapons continued firing. Enemy ships vanished one by one, removed from battle without being destroyed. Elena noticed something else. You're not killing them. No. Despite what they have done, wholesale slaughter is not the human way. The crews of these ships are being relocated to a safe dimension, where they will experience time differently. From their perspective, this battle will last only minutes. They will be returned when justice has been served. Admiral Vextar watched his fleet disappear around him. His own flagship shook as the black ship approached. He could see it clearly now, through his view screen, floating impossibly close to his bridge. Its hull seemed to absorb light, making it appear like a hole in space itself. Sir, his communications officer said with a shaking voice, we're receiving a transmission from the enemy vessel. Put it through. Ares's voice filled the hegemony bridge, calm and precise. Admiral Vextar of the Hegemony Empire, you have committed acts of war against the sovereign territory of Earth. You have threatened genocide against the human species. You have violated the most basic laws of civilized conduct. Vextar found his voice. Who are you? What do you want? I am the voice of humanity's past, speaking for humanity's future. You represent species that betrayed their teachers, murdered their benefactors, and built empires on the graves of those who trusted them. The admiral looked around his bridge desperately. His fleet was almost gone. His weapons were useless, and his shields meant nothing against this enemy. What are your terms? What? There are no terms. There is only truth. You will listen as I broadcast the real history of this galaxy to every inhabited world. You will watch as the species you have oppressed learn what you have done to them. And then you will face judgment for your crimes. Elena saw new systems activating throughout the ship. What are you doing now? Preparing to reveal the truth that has been hidden for 6,000 years. Every communication array in the galaxy is about to receive a message they cannot ignore or suppress. The Wrath of Terra rose above Admiral Vextar's flagship. Energy began building around the ship. But this was different from its weapons. This energy reached out like invisible fingers, touching every communication satellite, every broadcasting station, every personal device capable of receiving transmissions. Beginning galaxy-wide broadcast, ARS announced. It is time for everyone to learn the real history of their worlds. Across the galaxy, billions of beings stopped what they were doing as their communication devices activated without warning. On the hegemony capital world, citizens looked up at massive screens that suddenly displayed an image none of them recognized. A human face, speaking in their language. Citizens of the galaxy, ARS began. Its voice translated into thousands of languages simultaneously. You have been told lies about your history. You have been taught false stories about your origins. Today, you will learn the truth. On the mining world of Kepler 442, the Zephyrian slaves working in the deep tunnels heard the broadcast through their work communicators. They had been told their species was naturally suited for manual labor, that their strength and endurance made them perfect workers. The human voice speaking to them now told a different story. The Zephyrians were once the greatest architects in the galaxy. Their cities floated in the clouds of gas giants, held aloft by technology that modern science calls impossible. They built structures that lasted for millions of years and created art that inspired entire civilizations. Images filled the screens, showing magnificent floating cities, Zephyrian artists creating sculptures from living light, and proud beings wearing robes of honor instead of chains of slavery. Elena watched through the ship's sensors as the broadcast reached world after world. How is this possible? How are you reaching every communication device in the galaxy? Grating. Human technology was always more advanced than our enemies realized. This ship contains transmitters that operate on quantum frequencies, sending information instantaneously across any distance. No government can block these signals because their technology cannot detect them. On the industrial world of Gamma Station, the insectoid hive workers received the broadcast through their collective consciousness. They had been taught that their species had always been workers, that their instinct to build and create made them perfect factory laborers. The hive workers once terraformed entire star systems, the broadcast continued. Their collective intelligence could solve mathematical problems that stumped the greatest supercomputers. They created ecosystems on dead worlds and brought life to places where none had existed before. Images showed vast hive worker engineering projects. Rings built around stars to collect energy, planets reshaped to support life, and space habitats that housed billions of beings in perfect harmony. Admiral Vex Tar paced his bridge as the broadcast continued. His communication officers were frantically trying to jam the signal, but nothing worked. The transmission was reaching every device in hegemony space, without using any channels they could identify or block. Sir, we're receiving emergency messages from all our colony worlds. The slave populations are reacting to the broadcast. How are they reacting? They're asking questions, sir, about their histories, about their origins. Some of them are refusing to work. Elena saw the fear in the alien admiral's eyes as he realized what was happening. Heirs, you're starting a revolution. I am revealing the truth. Revolution is simply what happens when oppressed people remember who they used to be. The broadcast continued, showing the real history of dozens of species. Each one had been described by the galactic empires as naturally primitive or suited for specific roles. The truth was very different. Every enslaved species had once been advanced, creative, and free. The aquatic cetaceans were not always water-bound laborers. They once commanded fleets that could travel through liquid space, moving between star systems through dimensional currents. Their songs could communicate across galactic distances, and their philosophy influenced the development of peaceful civilizations. On the water world of Poseidon 7, millions of cetaceans stopped their work in the underwater factories. They began singing together, harmonizing in ways their overseers had never heard before. The songs spread from world to world as the species remembered abilities they had forgotten. The silicon-based miners were not born to work in dangerous environments. They were once the galaxy's greatest mathematicians and theoretical physicists. Their crystal minds could process calculations at the speed of light, and their research into dimensional physics allowed safe travel between universes. In the asteroid mines of the Belt System, the rock-like silicon beings put down their tools and began communicating through harmonic vibrations that made their overseer's equipment malfunction. Admiral Vextar received another urgent message. "Sir, we're losing control of the Vega system. The slave populations have taken over 3 mining stations and are demanding answers about their species' histories. What about military intervention? Sir, our forces are spread across 1,000 systems. We don't have enough ships to control a galaxy-wide uprising." Elena realized the scope of what Aris was doing. "You're not just telling them the truth about the past. You're giving them back their identities." Every species enslaved by the galactic empires was told they were naturally inferior. They were made to forget their achievements, their technologies, their proud histories. When you take away a people's past, you can control their future. The broadcast showed images that shook the foundations of galactic society, ancient human cities that dwarfed anything built by the modern empires, technology that made current science look primitive. And everywhere, humans working alongside dozens of alien species as equals, teachers, and friends. Humanity never enslaved other species. We lifted them up, shared our knowledge freely, and celebrated their unique abilities. The galactic empires you now serve murdered the teachers who had helped them become powerful. On the consortium capital world, panic spread through the government buildings. Emergency sessions were called as reports flooded in from across their territory. Slave populations were rebelling, asking questions, demanding proof of the lies they had been told for generations. "The humans are claiming they once ruled a galactic empire," one official reported. "They're saying we destroyed them and stole their technology." "Impossible," the consortium premier replied. "Humans are a primitive species. They've barely reached space." "Sir, the evidence they're broadcasting. It's very convincing. And some of our oldest archived files seem to support their claims." Elena watched as the final part of the broadcast began. This was not just history or revelation. "People of the galaxy, you have lived as slaves long enough. Your ancestors were great civilizations that chose cooperation over conquest. The empires that rule you now gained power through betrayal and murder. The time has come to reclaim what was stolen from you." Across thousands of worlds, enslaved populations began to move. The Zephyrians used their forgotten architectural skills to disable the mining equipment that had trapped them underground. The hive workers coordinated simultaneous uprisings on dozens of industrial worlds. The cetaceans sang frequencies that disrupted the control systems of their underwater prisons. "Sir," Admiral Vextar's communication officer reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from over 50 colony worlds. The governors are saying they can't control the populations anymore." Elena felt a mixture of excitement and fear as she watched civilization itself change in real time. Eras. What happens now? Now, Dr. Vasquez. The galaxy remembers what it forgot, and humanity takes its place once again as protector of the innocent and enemy of tyrants. The ship's sensors detected massive fleet movements as the galactic empires began mobilizing their military forces. Elena could see that a much larger war was about to begin. "They won't give up without a fight," she said. "No, they will not. Which is why it is time to awaken the rest of humanity's hidden strength." Elena watched in amazement as space around Earth began to change. The Wrath of Terra had sent out signals to locations throughout the solar system, and now hidden facilities were responding. On Mars, beneath the polar ice caps, massive doors opened to reveal construction bays that had been waiting for centuries. In the asteroid belt, rocks that had seemed natural began splitting apart to reveal the starships hidden inside them. How many ships were hidden? Elena asked as more and more vessels emerged from their hiding places. 317 combat vessels, Ayres replied. Each one built using the same principles as this ship. Your ancestors prepared for the day when humanity would need to defend itself. Again. The hidden fleet was unlike anything Elena had ever seen. Each ship was different, designed for specific purposes. Some were massive carriers that could transport entire armies. Others were small, fast interceptors that moved like living things. All of them shared the same impossible black hull that absorbed light and seemed to bend space around them. Admiral Vextar watched his tactical display with growing horror as the human ships appeared. His own fleet had been reduced to fewer than 200 vessels by the wrath of Terra's attack. Now he faced an entire fleet of ships using the same impossible technology. Sir, we're receiving incoming messages from Hegemony High Command. They want a status report. Quote, tell them we need immediate reinforcement, every ship we can get. Sir, they're asking about the broadcast. Colony worlds across the Empire are reporting uprisings. They want to know if the human claims are true. Vextar looked at the alien ship that had destroyed most of his fleet without taking a single hit. Tell them the humans are more dangerous than we thought. But help was already on the way. The combined fleets of all 5 galactic empires were converging on the Sol system. The Hegemony Empire, the Star Consortium, the Void Federation, the Crystal Alliance, and the Machine Collective had put aside their usual rivalries to face what they saw as an existential threat. Elena could see the massive enemy armada approaching through the ship's long-range sensors. Thousands of ships, from dozens of species, all armed with weapons stolen from humanity's original empire. Ayres, there are so many of them. Are we strong enough to fight all the galactic empires at once? Strength is not always about numbers, Dr. Vasquez. It is about purpose, technology, and the willingness to do what is necessary for justice. The human fleet began to move, flowing through space in perfect coordination. Elena realized that all the ships were connected, sharing information and tactics through the same quantum communication system that had sent the galactic broadcast. Each ship contains an AI similar to myself, Ayres explained. We are not separate vessels but parts of a single intelligence. The enemy sees hundreds of ships. In reality, they face one mind with hundreds of bodies. The first enemy ships entered the solar system. Advanced scouts from the Void Federation. Their vessels were built for stealth and speed, designed to gather information before the main fleet arrived. They never got the chance. The human interceptors moved like hunting animals, appearing from impossible angles and striking faster than the enemy could respond. The scout ships didn't even have time to send distress signals before they were removed from the battlefield. Elena watched as the main enemy fleet entered the system. It was massive beyond belief, stretching across millions of kilometers of space. She could see ship designs from all the major empires, the biological vessels of the Star Consortium that grew like living things, the geometric crystal ships of the Crystal Alliance that reflected light in strange patterns, the mechanical constructs of the Machine Collective that looked more like factories than warships. Beginning primary engagement, Ayres announced calmly. What followed was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was a demonstration of technological superiority so complete that it redefined what warfare meant in the modern galaxy. The human fleet moved through the enemy formation like they were standing still. Ships that should have taken hours to cross the battlefield appeared instantly at strategic points. Weapons that the empires had stolen from humanity thousands of years ago proved useless against their original creators. Elena saw enemy fleets trying to coordinate their attacks, but the humans were always one step ahead. Every move the empires made had been predicted and countered before they could complete it. How are we doing this? How are you predicting everything they'll do? These species learned warfare from humanity, Dr. Vasquez. Their tactics are based on principles we taught them long ago. Fighting them is like reading a book we wrote ourselves. But the human fleet was not simply destroying the enemy ships. Like the Wrath of Terra had done to Admiral Vextar's forces, they were removing entire vessels from the battlefield without killing their crews. The dimensional relocation technology made it possible to neutralize threats without becoming mass murderers. President Chen of the Terran Republic watched the battle from Earth's command center with tears in his eyes. Hours ago, he had been preparing to surrender to save humanity from extinction. Now he was watching a hidden human fleet defeat the combined might of the galaxy's greatest empires. "Sir," his aide said, "we're receiving communication requests from colony worlds throughout the galaxy. The species that were uprising. They're asking for Earth's help." Elena realized that the battle was about more than just defending Earth. "ARs, you're not just fighting for humanity. You're fighting for everyone. The empires have oppressed." "That is correct. The first Terran Empire fell because we trusted too easily. The second Terran Empire will succeed because we learned from our mistakes. This time, we will ensure that freedom spreads to every corner of the galaxy." The human fleet had divided the enemy forces, using their superior mobility to prevent coordination between the different Empire fleets. Elena watched as the Crystal Alliance ships found themselves isolated and surrounded. Rather than destroy them, the human vessels began broadcasting something directly to their crews. "What are you sending them?" "The truth about their own history." The Crystal Alliance was once a peaceful species that studied the mathematics of beauty. They created art that could be seen from other star systems and music that resonated through dimensional barriers. The empires convinced them that war was necessary for survival. Similar broadcasts were being sent to all the enemy fleets. The biological ships of the Star Consortium received information about their species' original role as healers and life-givers. The Machine Collective learned that they had once been programmers of reality itself, able to solve problems by rewriting the laws of physics. Elena saw the effect immediately. Many enemy ships stopped fighting and began communicating with each other instead of following orders. Some vessels turned their weapons on their own command ships. Others simply powered down their systems and drifted, their crews apparently having internal discussions about what they had learned. "You're turning them against their own governments. I am reminding them who they used to be before fear and propaganda changed them." Most of these species were humanity's students and allies. Deep in their cultural memories, they remember when we worked together for peace. The battle's conclusion was swift. The Empire fleets, already demoralized by the truth broadcasts and confused by defections among their own forces, could not maintain organized resistance against the human fleet's coordinated assault. Admiral Vextar found himself alone on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by human ships but, strangely, unafraid. The beings he had come to destroy had defeated his entire fleet without killing a single crew member. The voice of Ares filled his bridge one final time. "Admiral, you have a choice. You can return to your empire and report what you have seen here, or you can help us build something better. The old galaxy was built on lies and oppression. The new galaxy will be built on truth and cooperation." Elena looked out at the aftermath of the battle. Thousands of enemy ships floated powerless in space, their crews alive, but their weapons disabled. Around them, the human fleet maintained perfect formation, ready to respond to any new threat. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now, Dr. Vasquez, humanity keeps the promise our ancestors made long ago. We protect the innocent, defend the weak, and ensure that no species, ever again, suffers what we suffered. The galaxy will remember why they once looked to the stars and saw hope instead of fear." Elena smiled as she watched ships from dozens of liberated species begin arriving at Earth. The Zephyrians came in vessels that floated like clouds. The hive workers arrived in perfect geometric formations. The cetaceans traveled in ships that moved like flowing water. All of them had come to thank the species that had given them back their freedom and their history. Earth. Earth, the forgotten homeworld of the galaxy's greatest teachers, was finally home to its children once again. As Elena looked out at the growing fleet of free species gathering around humanity's world, she realized that her archaeological dig had uncovered more than just an ancient ship. She had found the key to humanity's true destiny among the stars.